Hello and welcome to episode 132 of The Pitcher or the Hitter, the podcast by the M-SABR Dynasty League for the M-SABR Dynasty League. I am Cam,
I'm Sahil.
and another toxic week has come and gone. This one ended up being a little more toxic than we were expecting it to be. In the end, the result was the same as the first time, even down to that same 8-3-1 scoreline. Uh, and hopefully that's the last I have to talk about this matchup.
Yeah, no, don't worry. We'll be talking a lot about this matchup in a little bit. I think for your sake, or maybe for both of our sakes, I hope there's not a third toxic week this season. Um, I don't know if either of us will be able to handle that much toxicity, but it is over.
It is thankfully over. And it, didn't end up even being the most exciting, crazy matchup of the week. We've got some upsets here. Do you want to just dive right into the matchups and into our big shakeup here in the big upset?
Yeah, let's do it. It's kind of weird not having trades to talk about first, but we are in that point of the season. But yes, there has been a shakeup atop the standings, um, all due to a 7-4-1 upset win by EBO over Jake. Uh, EBO with just an awesome week all around. They would have beaten every single playoff team this week, which means I think they would have beaten every single team as a whole. I didn't calculate that out to confirm, but I think they would have beaten everybody this week. They had 20 home runs and 52 ribbies, 8 quality starts, a 3.28 ERA, and a 1 WHIP. That 8 quality starts ties EBO's highest total, which they also set earlier this year in week 3 against Andrew, as well as once in 2019. Back when Yuki's team was Matt and Matt's team. It's a nice throwback
Oh
there.
God,
Yeah,
Moneyball still was called Moneyball though.
still call Moneyball. Yeah. The 20 home runs was too short of their record. But yeah, they just overall a dominant week. Just like kind of one of those weeks similar to when Daniel and Matt beat me earlier this year, when it's like a bad team just having like not a great season, but everything just decides to come right in one week, and it just happens to come against an absolute behemoth of a team. Jake's team didn't even play that bad or anything. Like the 4.92 ERA and 136 WHIP are not great, but that came with 5 quality starts, 7 saves, and 3 holds. Jake had 48 runs and ribbies each, 17 doubles, 16 homers, 6 steals, a 350 OBP. Like most weeks, those are numbers that like should be able to win a matchup, but EBO just had their shit together all week and just put up a great performance, and that was enough for them to pull off the 7-4-1 upset.
Yeah, no, credit to EBO and credit to their young guys. It really felt like a week where a lot came together for them, and for the Tigers. There was a lot of positive Tigers stuff in the chat, and where the Tigers go, EBO goes, I suppose. But really, yeah, their young guys were great. Great week, great pitching performances from Scooble and Strider and Bryce Miller and um, Yuri Perez, and great hitting performances from Tovar and Kerry Carpenter and Torque, and from Gunnar Henderson, who I'm going to name matchup MVP. He had the best week of all with 9 RBI and a 500 on base, 3 doubles, 2 homers. Great week, and wanted to give it to a Tiger. Torque would have maybe been runner up, but fantastic week for Gunnar there.
Yeah, no, Gunnar was in a bit of a slump going into the week, which you would not have guessed from these numbers, but it's good to see him get back on track. A trip to Oakland will usually get a team kind of back on track, as the Orioles did sweep the A's. But yeah, just kind of dominant performances all around. I also want to give a shout out to Yuri Perez. Did you mention him?
I did.
Okay. I mean, that whole pitching staff did great. Strider, Perez. I mean, Miller, Jesus Christ. I mean, you're right. This is what, I think this is kind of what EVO is hoping that the future looks like, right? Like all of these guys, these young guys had really great weeks. And you're hoping if you're EVO that all of them can consistently put it together like this. Now, obviously, they are 6-13 now for a reason. A lot of these guys have not been able to consistently put it together, but there has been some positive signs over the last few weeks, and if they're able to carry this momentum into next season, I'm not saying they're going to be a playoff team next season or anything, but maybe you see them kind of look like what 2022 Andrew looked like, where the team looked pretty competitive. They hovered around 500 all season, and they looked primed to take the next step after in the season after. But I think this is a solid glimpse towards the future.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They got to be happy with what they accomplished this week. And this was in a week where Riley Green struggled and Alejandro Kirk struggled. CJ Abrams stole 4 bases but had a 227 on base, so that's kind of what he's gonna be for them. Yeah, no, they're next year. Hopefully, it doesn't start until next season. This isn't something they carry over against me, but yeah, no, it looked bright for them.
No, absolutely. Anything we'd like to say about Jake's team here?
Yeah, are you concerned about the pitching?
Yeah, a little bit. So I had mentioned off the air, and I'm gonna kind of confirm through these stats quickly here. But now, if we're looking at the ERAs and WHIPs the past uh 5 weeks, so 492 ERA, 136 WHIP this past week, 446 and 128 the week before, 508 and 134 the week before that. They did have a good week against Conor, but then against you, they had a 466 ERA and a 149 WHIP. So 4 of the last 5 weeks, the ERA and WHIP have not been very good. Um, you know, Jesus Luzardo has struggled a lot recently. 4 2/3, 4 earned, 5 1/3, 4 earned, 3 1/3, 7 earned, and 3 2/3, 5 earned in his last 4 starts. And you have to wonder if maybe some of the innings are kind of starting to accumulate a bit, and maybe he's just tiring a little bit down the stretch. Rodon is still on the IL. He's supposed to come back on Tuesday, but he hasn't looked good all season. Nathan Eovaldi's still on the IL. I still personally think that Blake Snell is liable to just blow up at any point. Like, he is leading the league in walks, but is also leading the NL in ERA. And Jake's gonna listen to this and be mad about it. Fine, but like before this Baltimore start he had this week, his last 5 starts before that, he had 4, 4, 4, 5, and 7 walks in those starts. I question whether or not this is going to be sustainable. And I mean, obviously Gosman's great and Castillo's great. Although 2 of Castillo's last 3 starts were not quality starts. And obviously Jake is a great team. He keeps winning. I'm not trying to knock on Jake's team here, but I feel like you have to be concerned a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think you do, and he still will quantity you to death, and he had 7 saves this week, which is pretty good. But yeah, no, that's it's tough to win with those pitching performances.
Exactly. Yeah. And, I mean, if he has a good ERA and whip this week, he's probably winning the matchup. So I think, yeah, it's definitely something that he's got to keep an eye out for. I wonder if maybe he gets around it by maybe using some of these pitchers a little more strategically in different spots. But we'll have to see. He does have kind of a soft landing here the next 2 weeks. So maybe he'll have a little bit of time to kind of work around that and maybe figure it out, in addition to more likely than not having the bye week to figure it out. But yeah, definitely something to keep an eye out for. Anything else you'd like to mention here about this matchup, or are we ready to move on?
No, let's move on. Do you want to get ours over with?
Yeah, I think that's the next logical matchup. So we'll get into the seeding and kind of the playoff picture after we wrap up the matchups. But Jake losing does elevate me to the 1 seed. Thanks to me beating you, as you mentioned in the open. I won 8-3-1, just like I did earlier in the season. I swept the offensive categories. A lot of them, which were pretty close. It's just I was able to kind of pull off some of these close offensive categories here. One runs by 5, one RBIs by 2, one OBP by 6 points.
Every time there's a close category, you're the one who wins it, no
Yes.
matter who you're playing.
Do you want to explain this new law that you came up with this week? I think it's
Yeah, Shaw's Law. If there's a category that Sahil can flip on Sunday, Sahil will flip it on Sunday.
uh,
And even and like and I guess for our matchup, you can trace it back to Saturday night because I was up big for much of Saturday,
you
and
were.
then you just kind of flipped a couple categories, and then you flipped another one, and like it was even looking like even categories that you didn't look like you could flip. Like, I mean, it looked at one point like I was guaranteed to win a minimum of 4 categories, and I won 3. Like, I don't know how on earth uh you dominated RBI. I drove in what 2 runs on Sunday. Yeah, two
I
RBI
had
on Sunday.
seven. I had 7 home runs and 14 ribbies on Saturday. That's what
Yeah,
you
it's
had.
insane.
6 RBIs and 1 home run on Saturday. Like, yeah, that kind of did it. Have you well, I will say every day, like before today in the matchup, I felt like I played worse than you, but then would look at and the score would keep changing like over the course of the matchup, like just like or over the course of that specific day in the matchup, like I was down like 4-7-1, uh, yesterday, and things kind of kept going up and down by there. But at the end of every single day, like I swear, like somehow I was winning. Uh, and
I think I was winning at the end of like Tuesday, but it may have been the only Tuesday and maybe also Wednesday.
Yeah,
But
but later in the week, no. But have you seen that meme on Twitter where it's like, oh, like, hey, nice, my team is playing, and then it's like, next to it, it's like, I want to kill myself, and then at the end, it's like, oh, hey, nice, we won.
yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty much how
that's yeah.
like every day of the matchup won for me.
God. No, it was a nightmare. I'll talk through well, Vlad's hurt now, so that's great. And uh, it was
Not
just
performing well when he's been healthy, low key.
he had a 450 on base this week. But
As a
yeah,
whole,
not the best. I'll say great week for Jeff McNeil. Brandon Nimmo would have been my matchup MVP because he had a great week. And pitching wise, I'll say I streamed Kyle Hendricks to great success. Um,
that hurt me
and I
so
got
much. That was my boy. You literally took my boy and just streamed him to success. That hurt.
Yeah, and I got a great start from Jordan Montgomery. Wheeler had one great start and one. It was started out bad, but the second his Sunday start started out bad, but he kind of rallied and made it respectable. Um, Griffin Jacks blew it for me on like on Tuesday, and then kind of was a hero on Sunday. I had a lot of bullpen issues, like Nick Martinez blew up, Griffin Jacks blew up, Hector Neris blew up.
Brandon
Um,
Santos blew up one of those games.
Yeah, so a lot of just a weird week, and that's not going to happen most of the week. I don't know why that happened now. And like I also feel like when I'm playing a bad team, I'll get 6 holds, and when I'm playing a good team, I can't buy a hold. I don't know what the deal with that is. Um,
Yeah, you did successfully stream the Griffin Jacks hole today, so like kudos to you for like dipping back in there after he burned you, and then you like got the hold. I mean, I was happy. Like Keuchel had the perfect game going, and I was like, all right, there's no way Jax comes in. And next thing I know, Keuchel loses the perfect game, and I bring Jax in, and I'm like, fuck.
yeah, but in general, it was a rough pitching week for me. It looked great, and then, or really, it was a rough pitching weekend for me. Like a lot of guys, Darvish, great first start, awful second start. Wheeler, great first start, rough second start. Framber, great first start, rough second start. Uh, it just, yeah,
So, Sonny Gray was perfect through 5 1/3 innings yesterday. And I swear he was the one where as soon as he turned around, and he ended up Darvishing 6 2/3 4. And as soon as he started giving up hits and walks, like I feel like that's when the matchup just turned around. Like all of a sudden the rest of your pitching fell apart. Framer was already shaky, yeah, giving up a couple runs, but then he gave up the 2 run home run and then punked Jose Caballero. Uh, and I think he gave it the home run to Dylan Moore, actually, which I would punk the next batter too if I gave up a home run to Dylan fucking Moore. But um, yeah, I kind of fell apart for you after that.
yeah. I guess last word on my team is I'm proud that I hung in there against you and that I was again winning at like 9:30 p.m. on Saturday.
Yeah.
So hey, that's pretty good. That's something to build on. My pitching is going to be better than it was this weekend in the future. My hitting, my on base is going to be better. Like most weeks, I have a on base percentage better than the one that you won with. Um, I don't know.
You
It's
have
tough, and I'm banged up. I'm really banged up, but this is, it went better than I thought it would, and maybe if I get another guy or two back against Erik, I can have a good end of the season.
Yeah, we'll get into your matchup against Erik in a little bit, but yeah, I do largely agree. I think you did hang in there pretty nicely. A lot of these categories did end up close, and like a couple things could have happened on Sunday that could have made this look even closer. I mean, you only lost by 2 RBIs and 6 OBP points. Like both of those looked like they could have even potentially flipped going into the last game. If those flip, suddenly you lose like 5-6-1, maybe we're having a different conversation here, even though you didn't lose. But I'll talk about my team for a bit. Offense killed it again. Um, this is now the third straight week that I've won every offensive category. I mean, obviously the last 2 weeks with the 12-0 wins, but my offense is just on cruise control right now. Shout out to Betts with, I mean, my God, he deserves more discussion in like this whole MVP talk. Like, yeah, 522 OBP this week, 3 homers, 6 ribbies. Um, Shout out Trey Turner. So I know the overall stats don't look super amazing, but he became the first Philly in like almost 40 years to hit 2 home runs in the same inning. He hit them both off of Corey Abbott. I thought that was really fun. Pete Alonso had 4 homers, 7 ribbies, 355 OBP. Jose Altuve has just been bonkers, one healthy this year. He had a 480 OBP and 2 steals for me this week. Then on the pitching side, like Julio Urias at 7 innings, 1 earned. Kyle Bradish has had 6 shutout innings with 8 strikeouts today against Oakland. Do you know that Cole and Bradish? So Bradish is now a qualified starter in terms of innings. They are now tied for first in ERA in the American League.
Jesus.
Yeah, Bradish has been fantastic. Uh, Love that trade this offseason, even though I did cut him and then have to pick him back up to make it work. Braxton Garrett, shout out to him. He had a 2.45 ERA and a 1 WHIP this week. 11 innings, 3 earned, but his 2 starts were against Houston and the Dodgers. So just really nice performances by him. He's been a great pickup for me. Zach Gallen had a quality start, 6 1/3, 1 earned. Max Fried had 11 and 2/3, 5 earned, one quality start and one paddock. He hasn't looked as sharp, but nice to see him do that. Josh Hader got his first save for me. And hey, overall, just a great week. Didn't even mention Tatis, a homer, 3 steals, 433 OBP. But anyone you'd like to name as my matchup MVP specifically?
Yeah, I gave it to Mookie. I think he had the best week for your team.
Yeah,
You had a lot of guys like your on base percentage guys didn't hit for power, and your power guys didn't hit for on base percentage, but Mookie was really the only one who did both.
yeah, exactly. That was I think that sums it up nicely. Um,
Yeah.
and I know that I think that's the right call, but like I really kudos to Braxton Garrett because that was really awesome that he had 2 tough starts. I really thought about benching him for one or both, and he showed out. So want to show him a little extra love. But that's all I have to say about this matchup, and I'm sure you would like to put it to bed. Are we ready to move on to the next matchup?
Yeah, the next one, there was another upset here. The Fightin' Julios beat Yuki 7-4-1. Made one of the best like single week to week turnarounds I've ever seen. The on base percentage, have you ever seen an on base percentage be 1,000 points higher than the previous week or like 12? It was 253 last week and it was 379 this week. 50 RBI, 9 steals. Uh, Julio went 21 for 37. He stole 6 bases. He drove in 12 runs. He was this team's offense, and they were able to beat Yuki, who had a really nice week as well.
I mean, 21 for 37 this week. I mean, that's just bonkers. And to think that Alex at least flirted with the concept of trading Julio to the point where he texted me on Thursday saying, "Thank you for convincing us to keep Julio Rodriguez, LMAO."
I
LMAO.
mean, he made me an offer, and I accepted it, and then he said, "No, never mind." He
Um,
was, yeah, he was the one who made the offer.
yeah, I'm reading back through my text with it, where we were talking about Julio offers, but yeah. Um, Oof. But yeah, I mean, Julio pretty much single-handedly carried him. And what's funny is like it was a great offensive week for Yuki too. Like it wasn't even like Yuki was bad and a great pitching week low key too. So like 54 runs by Yuki. That's a great number. 16 doubles, 13 homers, 353 OBP. That's all solid. He had a 223 ERA and a .88 whip. Like those are for a Yuki team I feel like often has high ERAs and whips. Like actually that might be Yuki's ERA record or whip. That's both records, I think. Okay. Yuki's ERA record going into today was a 2.263. He had a 2.23, so he sets the ERA record. His whip record was .885. So let's do some digging into the actual number when you do the decimal.
0.881.
Yuki set his ERA and whip record. Holy shit. And he was still lost.
Yeah. No, and again, he only had 3 quality starts and 37 Ks. So if he really just had like another starter go and pitch well, he could have even won this game. I think he could be well served doing maybe that EBO bullpen strategy. Yuki could. I'm not sure if he could. I don't know because he seems all in on it. He's got some good relievers: Swanson, Jansen, Doval, uh, Michael King, Pete Fairbanks. Like he's got the pieces there. If he could trade for like one more elite, like top of the line reliever, then he could. There could be something there. He could try and EBO this in some sort of way.
I know he was trying to get Brian Abreu from me for a while. He would have been like the perfect fit for like an Alexis Diaz. Get that young reliever he could build around for that strategy. But I mean, I fully agree. And it's interesting too, because kind of at the trade deadline, he like dumped a bunch of the guys that he had for like a while in the season. Like Scott Barlow had been like a mainstay on his team. Then he got traded to the Padres and he dumped him. And there's a couple other guys as well, but he kind of redid the bullpen on the spot and it like really worked for him this week. So you're right. I think his relievers combined to give up one run this week. Joel Payamps gave up a single run. Nobody else.
Yeah, Payamps has been fantastic this year too. He is,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, at that back of that bullpen, he has been fantastic.
Yeah, he's been one of the top holds guys in baseball. I mean, I don't know how Milwaukee does it, but I swear they just pull out a bunch of guys from obscurity and they turn into like elite bullpen arms.
Yeah, no, I agree. But yeah, no, good week for Yuki. Good week. Alex, outside of Julio, he had a really good week from Jake Berger, so and Brandon Rogers too. So let's give them their due as well. Nothing to write home about pitching wise, although we got a decent start from Bobby Miller. But yeah, no, Alex improves to 5-14, holding off the Drury, who were tied with him going into this week. And is that a transition into their matchup?
Yeah, let's go into there. This one was actually so going into today, Daniel and Matt were only down 5-7. There did not look like another obvious category that could flip, but like they were actually keeping it relatively competitive against the Ruthvik, and then Ruthvik today just like went off offensively and was able to rack up a couple saves and a hold and was able to like more effectively pull away. But um, it looked kind of close-ish for a little while there. But the Drury still lost 2-9-1. They got 5 holds, which was nice, but didn't do literally basically anything else pitching wise. On the hitting side, 10 home runs, 39 ribbies, 35 runs, 14 doubles is okay. Nothing really special to write home about. Yeah, Ruthvik's team did not have the best week. 66 Ks, 7 saves is like solid, but the 4.61 ERA, 139 whip, not so much. And it kind of just looks like, you know, average week, but they were able to take advantage of beating up on a bad team. Is probably how I would best describe it.
Yeah, I agree. He was let down by guys like Santander, who had a rough week. Um, and yeah, rough
And
week for
is hurt
Stephen
now, actually.
Kwan.
Yeah.
That could be something. I came close to trading for him.
Yeah.
Um, and then yeah, not the best pitching week for Lorenzen or for Logan Webb. Good start for Barrios, although he had uh, didn't end up finishing out a quality start. Didn't end up mattering though. Yeah, I'd say a pretty mediocre week. The MVP goes to the namesake Rafi Devers, who was really the one guy who stood out on offense. 8 runs, 6 RBI, 3 homers, so a really good week for him.
Yeah, absolutely. No, great for Rusvik to be able to kind of pick up a win. He advances to 10-7-1. And it does set up an interesting matchup next week that we'll get into in a bit. But um, anything else here? If not, I think there's a great transition here into who he will be playing next week.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Andrew had a very convincing win over Anthony, 10-2. Another mediocre week, I would say. Andrew and Ruthwick both had mediocre weeks, but they both got the job done against worst team.
Yeah, 12 steals for Andrew was actually set his record, which was 10 prior to this. So he actually kind of shattered that. But across the board, otherwise, offensively, like solid numbers, like 39 runs, 43 ribbies, 12 homers is fine, 330 OBP, but nothing special. Pitching wise, 355 ERA is pretty nice. 120 whip is okay. Like 5 quality starts, 2 saves, 3 holds, 59 Ks, decent week there. And yeah, he was able to pretty effectively beat an Anthony team that, is just kind of playing out the string here. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
10-2 win for Andrew.
yeah. No, Andrew had a lot of guys struggled, like Adolis Garcia, Brian Reynolds struggled. Rough week for Nate Lowe. But a couple guys, Schwarber was good, and Bobby Witt Jr. just went absolutely off this
Yeah.
week. He stole three bases, scored 10 times, hit three homers too. Had a high on base percentage, which he usually doesn't. Um, yeah, he's having a really solid year. And he really carried Andrew's team this week. And on the pitching end, he had a good start from Grayson and a good start from Pablo Lopez, but nothing really to write home about. And as for Anthony, yeah, that offense is missing Mike Trout. He only homered five times this week. Uh, and yeah, Christopher Morel uh, had a 150 on base with that homer. And yeah, no, just not a lot to be happy about for Anthony. That was a rough week, and Andrew took advantage.
Yeah, so one thing I will say about Andrew's team though, so Tony Gonsolin now out for the year. He gave up 10 earned in 3 1/3 innings. Want to guess what Andrew's ERA would be if you took out the Tony Gonsolin start?
Uh, 2.8.
2.13.
Jesus.
So maybe it was a better pitching week than we realized, but he just got Gonsolin.
Yeah, he might have, and he had a good start from Ryu. Good, a lot of guys put together three ERA weeks, and a lot of guys had good ERAs with not many strikeouts, like John Gray did. Yeah, yeah, good pitching week. Yeah, he got Gonsolin. Yeah, Gonsolin was terrible.
Yeah, that I'm sure he wishes he had Zach Allen right about now. That was who he gave up to get Gonsoling along with some other stuff. But yeah, breaking news, Yuki just sent in the chat. Oh shit, I forgot to set my lineups today.
God.
Oh God.
Yeah, didn't end up.
It literally would not have made a difference. Actually, it helped him uh, because he had 2 2/3 innings of Hunter Brown on his bench with 6 earned. Uh,
God. Well, yeah, yeah. Yuki has in the past made lineup decisions that have negatively affected him when it matters.
yeah,
Namely in my playoff matchup with him last year.
I also think he forgot to set his lineup against you earlier this year, didn't he? Like,
He might have.
yeah, I think it was against you, but yeah, that playoff one still haunts me. That's one of those what ifs in league history. Maybe that means Erik's in the finals, and who knows what Erik v. Jake looks like. Does Erik have 4 championships in 5 years? That'd be
Oh
insane.
God,
Uh,
that would be ridiculous.
yeah,
Speaking of Erik, one matchup to go. It's Erik's matchup. He had a very uh easy win over Conor. He hit 24 doubles. Outside of that, it was a pretty average offensive week for him, although the on base was higher than normal. Pitching wise, though, he really, really struggled, but Conor struggled a little bit more. And Erik still ended up winning more pitching categories than he lost.
yeah, Jesus, the Hunter Green start today just killed him. As did Scherzer threw like 100 pitches to get 11 outs. That was just the Brewers really did him in today. Uh, but yeah, you're right. Just seems like all the like playoff teams that played non-playoff teams this week kind of played down to their competition.
Yeah, I'd say a little bit. Erik is another team that, like Andrew with Bobby Witt Jr. and Alex uh, with Julio and Ruthvik with Devers. A lot of teams had exactly one guy who was good on offense, and that one guy was insanely good. And for Erik, it was Christian Walker this week. Walker at four homers, drove in 11 runs, 500 on base, killed it on a week where, I mean, I guess Zach Geloff had an okay week, but that's about it for other guys.
500 OBP with 3 doubles, 3 ribbies, and a
Yeah.
steal. 3 runs. Like, yeah, I'll take that. I guess Shohei had a good week, 2 homers, 5 ribbies, a 375 OBP. I feel like he's so good that we're just kind of used to it, and it just doesn't register sometimes. Uh,
Yeah, that was a pretty good week, and he didn't get a start in Eric's rotation this week, so that maybe hurts his uh,
I could
overall
be
stats.
wrong,
But
but
Christian Walker would have won this no matter what.
I could be wrong, but I think Shohei they pushed him back on the pitching side. His last start was pushed back. So actually his next start's going to come against the Reds this week. So they
Uh-oh.
skipped him into rotation, but so that'll be fun for you. But yeah, um, not a lot here to write home about kind of overall here for Erik, but he was able to pull out a win. This is now Erik was 4-6 after 4 straight losses. He has now won 9 straight games, and he is 13-6. That is insane. What a comeback he has made. Anything else you want to talk about with this matchup? Because if not, I think that's a great transition into kind of looking at the standings now, because Erik, among other teams, has made it kind of interesting.
Yeah, let's do it.
But yeah, so this was uh this week kind of shook up the playoff race a little bit, and has also set the stage for kind of a big matchup next week with respect to the seeding. But let's start at the top. Entering this week, Jake was first. I was second. I was a half game back of Jake. And you were a game back of Jake and a half game back of me. You and Jake have both lost, and I won. So I am now a half game above Jake. I'll be 15-4, and Jake will be 14-4-1. You dropped to 13-5-1. So you are still a game back of Jake, and you are now a game and a half back of me. Functionally, I mean, barring you winning out, and either me or Jake losing out, it looks like that Jake and I are going to get the buys. Now, there are 2 weeks left in the season. I do control my own destiny. If I win out, I have the bye. I don't even technically need to win out because I have a half game lead over Jake, and I do have the tiebreaker. So even if I was just to go 1-0-1, so if I was to tie either Ruthvik or Anthony the next 2 weeks, that would work as well. It's not the race for one. While I do have my own destiny, I still have to play Ruthvik in the final week. I did lose to Ruthvik earlier in the season. He is a playoff team. Ruthvik has historically played me tough, so I don't think anything is kind of set in stone. And hey, I mean, Jake just lost to EBO. We didn't think that was going to happen. You never know how things work against Anthony. Jake, on the other hand, is the only playoff team to not have to play another playoff team in the next 2 weeks. So he ends the season with Daniel and Matt, and then Anthony. It looks like me and Jake are probably going to get the buys, and both of us can clinch a bye this week with either us winning or you losing. But who is one, who is two, still seems like it's very much up in the air. Although I have now pulled into the lead on that front. Let's move now to kind of 3 and 4. You are now only a half a game ahead of Erik. Erik is 13-6. You are 13-5-1. You two play each other the final week of the season. So as long as you don't, if you win this week, against
If I beat whoever wins between me and Eric in the final week is going to be the 3 seed unless one of us gets upset this week.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Eric's playing Yuki and you were playing EBO. I mean, EBO just upset Jake. They're pretty hot right now, so you never know. But yeah, I mean, it's functionally looking like uh your all's matchup in the final week of the season is going to be the battle for the 3 seed, and the loser is going to be the 4 seed. Um,
Mhm.
Next chunk here is 5 and 6. Ruthvik or Ruthvik and Andrew are both 11, 7 and 1 after winning this week. They did play once earlier this season. Ruthvik won 8-4. So he currently possesses the tiebreaker. If Ruthvik wins this week, he clinches the 5th seed. And barring an Erik loss, I don't think that Ruthvik would be able to jump any higher. If Andrew wins by a bigger margin than 8-4, he would clinch the 5th seed this week. But if Andrew wins by less than an 8-4 margin, he would need either a win or a Ruthvik loss in the last week to clinch the 5th seed.
Mhm.
I got that right. And if Andrew wins 8-4, the head-to-head will be to Roto. I didn't really think it would be worth calculating their Roto going into this week because obviously it's going to change. But if they do tie, I will certainly make sure next Monday or whenever we record the podcast that there is Roto available for those two teams so we can kind of determine how that's going to shake out. Ruthvik has publicly said he does not care whether he is the 5 or 6 seed, which I find really interesting. But and we will get into next week kind of like what teams' preferred matchups are for those the first round matchups or what their path to the playoffs is going to look like which team they're going to have to go through in the semifinals. For those of you who don't remember, like the MLB playoffs, we do it like a fixed bracket. So the winner of 4v5 will play the top seed, and the winner of 3v6 will play the second seed. So that will be interesting to follow. Anything else you would like to say about the playoff scenarios? If not, I'd like to dig into this Ruthvik v. Andrew matchup a little more.
Yeah, so I guess last thing, I tend to kind of agree with Ruthvik about not mattering being the 5 or 6 because really I don't know if I care too much about 3 versus 4 because 1 versus 2 is in flux and it's all just kind of in flux right now. I could as the 3 seed I could face Andrew or Ruthvik, and as the 4 seed I could face Andrew or Ruthvik. I don't really have a preference one versus the other. Um, I, and I could face either of them in the first round. And if I make the semis, then I could face either you or Jake. And I won't know who that is. I don't know who that's going to be right now. So as of now, I don't really care too much.
No, I think at the moment it doesn't matter as much. And I think functionally, like especially for Ruthvik as like 5 or 6, like really the main advantage with the seeding at that point is like, hey, like would I have a tiebreaker? Like if I tied a 6 seed in the finals, like I'd be able to win. Like I don't know if there's that much of a difference there. I think where some of the differences come or maybe with some of the higher seeds. Um, and I think some of it just kind of depends on what teams you would rather go up against, you know. And it might be, hey, I have a lower seed, but that lower seed would enable me to play a team that actually I think I match up better against, and I would prefer to play in the first round or in the semis to get to the finals. I mean, for example, like I swept you this season, winning 8-3-1 both times. Whereas you lost to Jake 5-6-1 and then tied him 6-6. Like maybe you would hypothetically prefer to play Jake in the semis. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not
I've
sure.
played Jake very even twice.
Yes, like And again, like I'm not saying that as like definitively like, hey, like this is how it should go. No, nobody get any ideas from that. That's just like an example. Uh, you know, I think that's where it probably comes out to play a little more. Especially with it this year and not being like realistically looking like, oh, hey, like, you know, it's the 2v3 seed that's kind of up in the air. Like, which one am I going to get going into that last week, right? Because, having that buy is obviously something you would prefer. Uh, whereas, 3v4 might not make that much of a difference in the big scheme of things, depending on how some other things follow.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I tend to agree.
Yeah, I think, and we'll do another deeper discussion next week about the playoff seeding. I mean, I think like for example, like Ruthvik v Andrew, like that should probably be fixed next week. That seeding, or maybe not probably. I mean, there's a decent chance that Andrew wins by a less than an 8-4 margin. But like I think we'll have enough of a better idea where maybe we can have more specific conversations about preferred seating or preferred matchups. And obviously, a lot can happen in between now and the end of the week with injuries and stuff that could also affect that. So I think it's still a little premature for those conversations, but we will turn back to that next week. Why don't we discuss this Ruthvik v Andrew matchup? I think it's no secret. We've talked about this a couple times now. I think this is our matchup of the week. It is the only matchup between two playoff teams, and they both have identical records. And for all the reasons I just laid out, there's a high chance that this is what the matchup that determines who's the 5 seed and who's the 6 seed.
Exactly. Yeah, and that'll determine who's playing me versus who's playing Erik, and we don't know yet if the winner's playing me or the winner's playing Erik. Um, but yeah, no, it's yeah, 3 versus 5, or yeah, 5 versus 6. And yeah, I think Andrew's definitely really banged up right now. They both been really good, I think. And I'm not gonna dive too much into my feelings about the matchup. We'll pick him in a little bit. But no, yeah, as we've said, very monumental.
It's interesting for Ruthvik here, I will say, because I think he ends the season now with Andrew, and then he plays me, and then the playoffs start. So for from here on out, now there's no weak points in the schedule anymore. He's done with that. This is he's in the big leagues now, and he's in the big leagues to stay for the rest of the season. Um, Whereas Andrew does have kind of a softer matchup next week, but I think these are two pretty evenly matched teams. I think it's going to be a hard fought matchup, but we will, I mean, certainly pick these matchups later. And I will be certainly interested to kind of hear your reasoning behind picking one of the teams over the other.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, do you want to do that right now? Is there anything else we need to do?
we do have to go over the pick on uh, from last week. So let's do that quickly and then we'll pick the matchups. We had identical picks last week, which we've been pretty on point picking the same matchups the last 3 weeks. We've only had one difference. But we both picked Ruthvik to beat Daniel and Matt. We were correct. We both picked Andrew to beat Anthony. We were correct. We both picked Erik to beat Conor. We were correct about that. We both beat Pete. Wow, I cannot talk right now. We both picked Yuki to beat Alex. That did not happen. We both picked Jake to beat EBO. That did not happen. We both picked myself, but we both picked myself to win 12-0. And that did not happen. But I'm going to count it as a win for us anyway. So we both went 4-2 on the week. I'm done doing math on air. I don't think it really makes a difference for anybody. So just know that Cam is still ahead in our little pick'em game. And that means that Cam once again gets to pick first whenever you are ready, good sir.
All right, I think I'll beat EBO. I don't think they're gonna have Magic twice in a row. I think um I think you'll beat Anthony. I think Erik will beat Yuki, although I think Yuki's gonna give him a scare and make it like 6-5-1. I think Jake's gonna beat the jury. And then it gets tough. I don't think either team between Conor and Alex wants to win this matchup. Alex had a good week this week. I don't think he carries it over that much because he was so reliant on Julio. I think I'm going to call the old tie here, break out the tie card. And I am going to pick Ruthvik. And this kind of goes against what I've been thinking all season. But Andrew's really banged up right now. He's missing guys like Crone. He's missing Josh Young, who's had a good year. He's missing a whole bunch of pitchers. Although Lodolo's supposed to be coming back sometime soon, although he did have a setback. I don't know. Um, I mean, Andrew's been playing Jose Caballero all week.
Hey, Caballero's been good. Okay, Caballero's now hurt, I think.
Oh God. Yeah, no, it's tough, and he doesn't have a place to put Caballero now. So either he cuts him or
Of
something. I
course
don't.
he's gonna cut him. Don't give me this whole I gotta stash literally anybody who's like owned in like 0.00001% of leagues bullshit.
I mean, I guess then he's not that good to begin with. You don't want to keep him. Hey, he's got 23 steals. Goddamn. Yeah. I'm just kind of. I think Ruthvik's really kind of hit his stride since like week 13, week 14, and I think he'll pull out the win this week.
Interesting. All right. I'll pick myself to beat Anthony. I think you'll beat EBO. You have before you played me, you played a string of three non-playoff teams where it was like very close, like going into like the last day, like what you beat Anthony 5-4-3, Alex and Zach 7-5, and Conor 6-4-2, and like a couple of things right at the end there had to go your way for it to like not end in like a tie or something crazy like that.
Those are all matchups where I was up like 9-2 going into Sunday, by the way.
No, oh yeah, I know. And for whatever reason, your team does not play well on the weekend. And
That's been the case like ever since like 2019, and I still don't get it. I have not had a good Sunday since I joined the league.
yeah, this isn't new. My theory is that I jinxed you in that 2020 semis with that Sunday, and you just never recovered from that like epic Sunday. Um,
I'll buy it. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So all of that to say, I think you're going to beat EBO, but I think it's going to be like it's 7-5, and I'm going to put that in the sheet. I wrote down your prediction of the score for Erik v Yuki, and I'm going to say you beat EBO 7-5. I just think it's fun to have in there. Speaking of Erik v Yuki, I think Erik wins, and I think it's a pretty convincing win as well. Like I don't really think Yuki's team really has much in them on the pitching side to really put up a big fight against Erik's team, even with Erik kind of coming off a pedestrian pitching week. I think Jake will rebound against Daniel and Matt. I don't think they're going to drop there. I think you're right. It does get a little tough after that. I think Conor has the more talented team than Alex and Zach. And I think I'm gonna pick them for that reason, but like, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised whatever happens in this matchup. Like, it's kind of a clusterfuck. Andrew v. Ruthvik is tough, and I did a little research for this in making my pick. So when I think about these two teams and I kind of put them in front of each other, I think Andrew has the more talented roster. But what Ruthvik has done 7 of these last 8 games is win, including a win over me, including a win over Andrew. He does have a bad loss to Erik over that stretch, but then if you're looking before when he kind of started the season with some losses, it's like a lot of close losses. Um, Interestingly, a couple of bad teams, but like he's played pretty competitively against quite a few teams, uh, quite a few of the playoff teams, and I just wonder if maybe I'm underestimating him a little bit, and maybe he actually has it together a little more than I'm giving him credit for. Um, I think you are right that Andrew's team is banged up. I mean, the Josh Young injury is not great. Nolan Gorman just got another injection in his back. That sounds painful as hell. Jonah Heim is cannot switch hit anymore, so he's kind of still playing every day, but not really. Uh, I looked at the starters that they have going with like potential two starts, and it looks like Andrew might have a couple more two starts in Ruthvik. I need to double check that quickly. Yeah, I don't think Ruthvik is a two-start starter next week. And I think for that reason alone, I think I'm going to pick Andrew. Um, Although Ruthvik does have a large quantity of starters. Ah, this is tough. Uh, I'm going to go with Andrew. My gut said Andrew at the beginning. I think I was underestimating Ruthvik, but and I guess I said I'd made a pick and then actually hadn't made a pick and was making the pick as I was talking, hoping I would luck into the answer. But I'm going to pick Andrew, partially to be different from you, and partially because I still think Andrew has a more talented roster as a whole.
All right, there you have it. So a little more different in our picks this week than we have been in previous weeks, I gotta say, which is good.
Yeah. I mean, what I picked Conor, you picked a tie, and then I picked Andrew, you picked Ruthvik. Um, yeah, it's gonna be an interesting week. I have no idea how this one's gonna shake out, but I feel like there's an upset here somewhere that's gonna throw us all out of whack. And before we go here, I mean, I just want to I think like upset wise, that could throw the standings kind of into a loop if you are like one of those non-playoff teams who's just rooting for chaos, or even a playoff team that just likes chaos as a whole. Um, if you win and one of me or Jake loses, the buys suddenly become really interesting because you are right back in that. So if you're rooting for chaos, root for Cam and not for me and Jake this week. Um, and if you're rooting for Erik to potentially drop in the standings, uh, lower than the 4 seed that he's at right now, I'd root for him to lose this week, because if he loses, he's only a half game. He'd only be a half game ahead of whoever wins between Ruthvik and Andrew. Um, and he has to play you that last week. So maybe Erik could slip to the 5 seed hypothetically in that scenario. Uh, and I guess just very quickly, he does have the tiebreaker over Andrew. He swept him this year. Uh, and he does have the tiebreaker over Ruthvik too. Okay, so he would have to uh one of them would have to win and he would have to lose for it to be kind of interesting that week after. But yeah, if you like chaos, root for those scenarios.
I love it when chaos's interests and my interests align.
Yeah, that's not one I like, but I know I can just control my own destiny and that be that. So I'm gonna hope I just do that. And not have to worry about any of this bullshit.
All right. But any last words here before we say goodbye to week 19?
No, I'm just glad Toxic Week is over. I don't think I had the heart to handle that anymore.
Yeah, and hopefully this is the last toxic week of the year.
I don't know. I think I'd like to play you in the finals. I think that would totally just uh fuck with everything. Like I
Yeah, no, my first finals appearance wasn't against you or Eric, so we didn't have the craziness that would have come with that.
I- I'm like I'm
Although
trying. Go ahead.
it did come from my first finals appearance did come from a semis win over Eric, which was nice. But yeah, I didn't. I think maybe luckily, unluckily, did not have to have a finals versus you or versus Eric. Although I think a rematch with Jake this year in the playoffs would be equally toxic as either of those hypothetically would be.
I think they're all going to be toxic. I mean, if it's you or Eric or Jake, I have to play. They're all going to be toxic. What I would look forward to is a hypothetical finals podcast where it is you and me in the finals. Like we might legitimately record for like or we would not. You would make sure that we are staying within the limits, but like we could record all day, and I don't think like I don't think we would run out of content.
I think a me versus Eric finals would be interesting because we'd both be stressed and crazy about it, but neither one of us would mention once in the chat that the matchup is happening.
No, I think I would be talking about your matchup in the chat more than anybody else, and it would be weird. I mean, honestly, even if it was Jake too, like Jake doesn't talk a ton about his matchups during the week, maybe a little more than you or Eric do, but um, is it just me who's just driving all of it?
I think most of us tend to like be very, let's not get too excited while the matchup's still going.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, if you read my DMs uh with Cam during toxic weeks, honestly, I just kind of assume you mute me like the Sunday before we play, and then you unmute me right before we record the podcast. Um, it's 100% what I think happens, and
I
then you.
definitely, I don't mute, but I definitely ignore.
Yeah, it's you could definitely see the whole range of emotions. I think I'm surprised that I did not break your phone like 2020 semis with all the messages. I genuinely think that Sunday, like your phone like should have had a heart attack uh from all the messages I was sending. But
Yeah. Well, that phone I no longer have, so coincidence, maybe.
yeah, wouldn't surprise me if I was a big part of why you don't have that phone anymore. But
No, I think that phone just fell in the Huron River.
did it?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that might be a better fate for it than getting blown up with some of the messages that I sent. It was certainly an interesting back and forth this week.
It was. But yeah, that week is over. Let's move on to week 20. We'll see you next time. And we'll know who's most likely to have the 5 seed at the end of the week. It's gonna be a good one.
Yep. See you then.
This podcast is good.